My name is Mills Hayes, and I'm here at the University of South Carolina. Racist flyers were found on Gambrel Hall on the first day of spring semester and just one day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The flyers blamed Black Americans for the election of Donald Trump and were posted over a collage of famous African Americans. Students who saw the flyers posted the pictures to social media, which were shared thousands of times. USC is still investigating who put the racist flyers on two different campus locations. I am here tonight with student leaders on campus to discuss the incident and the issue of race on campus. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I think it's really important that we talk about these issues, so thank you. Without further ado, we will get started. Do you think that this incident is a representative of the majority of USC students or administration's feelings, thoughts?
I would like to hope that it's not representative of majority of the university, but what I do know is that there are people on our campus that think like this. These thoughts and these words just never surface in daily conversation, and that too is a talk that needs to be had. People need to start checking their friends on what they say, the snide remarks, the microaggressions that happen on campus during daily conversation, because that's where we start seeing all of the surface. And I feel like that's a really, really important conversation that needs to be had among the people that you're with every day, because that's how we stop these things from building up to a level such as this, where it becomes a campus-wide issue rather than an individual issue.
Right. Can you speak a little bit more about a microaggression? Because I think some people might not be familiar with that.
So microaggressions are small remarks, basically racially directed, but the person that's directing these remarks might not always mean them to be racially charged, but the person that's receiving the remarks feels them in that way.
I think this is a really important question. How would you explain racism to someone who has never experienced it?
Racism is something to me that comes from a place of power and of privilege. And without those two combined, it's just not the same as prejudice. It's not the same as discrimination. You need both power and privilege to truly experience racism, because if you don't have that privilege, then what you have said is something that's prejudice, but combined with that power, it's something that has effect. It makes a change in people's lives, if that makes sense. It's a hard topic to describe with just one sentence or just like a few sentences, but just the combination of power and privilege, that's what racism means to me.
I think, to me, racism is someone else feeling superior to me based on the color of their skin, right? I think what she said is amazingly important. I think it touched the whole reverse racism thing. Is, I can say a comment and it may make you feel upset, but if I don't have power, then it's not going to really affect you, right? So I think certain people are born with privileges in this nation, and when they say things that have prejudice in them, it affects. It doesn't only hurt my feelings, but it can actually affect things systemically. Right. So we see this in education, we see this in government, we see this in incarceration. These things have an effect on people's lives, and it's a continuing cycle, right? So that power mixed with that prejudice has an effect on the rest of people's lives. So racism is all of those things, right. And it hurts.
A lot of people get really uncomfortable when people start bringing up racism and race, and they shy away from the topic. Why do you think that is, and how can we fix that? How can we make this issue come to light and not be such a taboo subject?
I feel that a lot of the time, people who are the ones who are being oppressed sometimes tend to be the more outspoken people, the more willing to talk about it. Right. And for some reason, a lot of people who aren't necessarily as part of a minority, they feel that it's not their fight, or it's not their place to talk about it, or not their place to say. But I think it's so important for students at Carolina who may not fall under a minority to reach out and talk to people about it and come from a place of learning and wanting to understand, because if you don't understand each other, then you're not going to move forward as a nation or as a community.
To me, one of the first suggestions that I would give anyone looking to have a good conversation about race is talk to someone who doesn't look like you, talk to someone who doesn't act like you, that doesn't hang in the same circles as you, because that's where the real conversation really starts. Secondly, I'd say be willing to acknowledge your privilege in knowing that this isn't something that affects you every day. You have the choice to live and ignore this, but other people do not. So when you come from a place of learning, like Ty said, just be willing to acknowledge that and acknowledge your place in that when you come to learn and hear about other people's experiences. Because most people that are under this type of oppression, I guess, they just want to be listened to. They want their voices to be heard and acknowledged. And the first thing that they don't need is a quick response. And I understand that responses are a quick way to defend yourself because you're uncomfortable with race conversations. And I totally get that because they're not always the most comfortable conversations, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, you're doing the right thing because that's where we start working to make things better for everybody and not just for one group.
For those people that have never experienced racism and they may feel uncomfortable talking about it, how can they speak out or be an ally to those who are affected by racism?
Yeah, I think we touched on the kind of microaggressions earlier. It's the small things, you know. You're sitting in a room and you hear your friend say a word that you know they should not be saying. Just, hey, yeah, let's not do that. You know, it's the small things. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. We have to be okay with being uncomfortable. I think doing that and then listening, like Ngozi said, we have to listen to each other. I think the worst thing you can do is discredit someone's hurt and discredit someone's pain. And I think that's what we see so often is we feel like an issue is rooted in race because it often is, even though you don't see it, it is. And then you say, no, it's not. Not why do you believe that? Why do you think it's rooted in race? You say, no, it's not. So listening and getting our side of things, I think, is the biggest thing.
It's important to speak to people from other cultures and not necessarily let this be their first conversation because it's more awkward if you don't know the person. But if you've been hanging out with somebody for years and you want to talk about their feelings about something, it's a lot easier to do that than to just meet somebody for the first time and have some great debate.
Right. How do you all think we can progress and fix this? And when are we going to stop having racist flyers on campus? How can we stop that? Where do we move forward as a university? How do we start that?
I think we often fall in the trap of complaining. We complain. We have to pull up a chair to the table and have a seat at that table. You know, join a new organization if you don't think an organization is diverse, join it. You know, if you don't think student government represents you, run for office. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be proactive in what we do. We can't just complain.